Hey, welcome to a series where we're gonna build a full stack Discord clone using NestJS, GraphQL, and ReactJS. The backend and frontend will be completely written in TypeScript. For our backend, we're gonna have the following tech stack. We will be using NestJS as our backend framework. Then we will use Prisma as our ORM, and this will help us to communicate with our Postgres database. Then we will gonna make use of GraphQL instead of REST API, and this will help us with end-to-end typing. So we have nice auto-completion on the back and front end. And this is just awesome. This helps us to avoid mistakes and so on. Alright, and then we have Docker, and we simply use Docker to run our Postgres database in a container, so we don't need to install it on our machine. So we simply run a container, and in there we spin up a Postgres database. And now, for the front end, we will be using the following tech stack. We will be using ReactJS. Then for our UI, we're gonna use Mantine, and Mantine will help us to build a beautiful UI. As you can see here, for example, here's an input, and it just looks amazing. We will also use a bit of custom CSS, but not really much. And next we're gonna make use of Apollo client. And Apollo client will help us to sync our backend and front end, acting like a global state management library as Zustand, but for our data coming from our database. So this will help us to sync the data from our backend with our front end. Then we will have GraphQL codegen, and this will automatically generate TypeScript types based on our GraphQL schema from our backend. And what I mean by this is, when checking out our GraphQL schema from the backend, you see we have a bunch of types here. And what GraphQL codegen is doing, it takes the schema and it turns it into TypeScript types. You see we also have mutations here, and we have queries and subscriptions. And it will generate all the types that we need completely automatically. And this will allow us to type our queries, mutations, and subscriptions. So we exactly know what arguments, meaning variables, they take in and what they return. So there's no need to write any custom types or interfaces to data related stuff coming from our backend. And then for authentication, we will use Clerk. Clerk is amazing. It is a breeze to implement it with our React application, and this will help us with authentication, so we can protect routes and only allow authenticated users to interact with our Discord clone. And then for some light state management regarding our UI, we will be using Zustand, and that has been the whole tech stack that we will be using. And now let me show you a demo of the Discord clone that we will be building. Let's go. Let's sign in via Google. Once you're signed in, you're able to enjoy this beautiful Discord clone UI. We have a light and dark mode, and here you already see that there are two servers. And since I'm the creator of the servers, I'm also the admin by default. Currently there is one user member of this, and I also can kick this member. I can delete a server like so, and I can also create a server like so. And when clicking on a server, by default I go into the general channel, which is a text channel by default. I can create new channels, for example, a video channel. There you go. I can also update the server, yeah, and I can join another channel, for example, this video channel here. There you go. When pressing leave, I'm back in the general text channel. I can also invite people here by generating a unique invite code that I can copy. Now another signed in user can use this invite code, and now this user is part of this server, yeah, and it is a member, yeah. And here you see one member, which is the admin, which is this guy here, yeah, who created the server, so to speak, here. And here you see a new member, yeah, and by default it is a guest. I can also upgrade him to a moderator like so. And now let's try to chat in real time. I'm also able to delete a message like so, and you see the updates in real time. Also, messages can be edited, maybe something like this. There you go. And since I'm the moderator, I'm only able to delete a message, but I'm actually not able to edit them, yeah? Only the one who sends the message is able to edit it, yeah? So if I send from here, then I would be able to edit it, yeah? Like so. All right, cool. Now let's do the following here. Let's join our video room. And here you see we have a nice video chat now provided by LiveKit. And I can also join this video chat here. And what you see now is that we have 2 users in our video channel here, yeah? And also I can chat in real time here, like so. Yeah, here you see it, and here. And also images can be sent. There you go, yeah? And you also see when someone leaves the video chat that everything is updated in real time. When this user now decides to join another channel, the video chat is done. So I would say, without further ado, let's start coding. Okay, let's get started with coding. First of all, let's make an empty directory. Let's cd into this directory. And now let's create a front end and a back end. As our back end, we will be using NestJS. So you need to make sure that you have the CLI of NestJS installed, yeah, and it must be globally. And then you can use this command here. So let's make use of this. Nest new, and I name my project Discord backend. And we can use npm. And this will create a brand new NestJS project in a folder named Discord backend. And next, once this is done, we will also create a brand new ReactJS project using Vite. Okay, beautiful. We are done with installing NestJS. Now we can go to maintain.dev, and here we can look for usage with Vite. And then we can grab this command here, paste it in. We can name our project Discord. What's wrong here? Discord front end. Maybe I need to zoom out here. It's a bit buggy. Project name is Discord front end. For example, hit enter. We are using React and we are using TypeScript. Okay, nice. Now I would say we get started with the front end. We will make sure that Mantine UI is running properly with our ReactJS application. And Then we will install Clerk for authentication. And once this is done, we will create a beautiful create server model, which allows us to create Discord servers. And once we are done with this, we go to the backend and implement the functionality for creating servers and storing them into our Postgres database. So yeah, let's get started. So let's cd into Discord frontend. Let's run npm I. Now let's write code, empty space dot, to bring up Visual Studio Code. Here it is. And we can open up our terminal. And we can run npm run dev. And we should see our brand new running ReactJS application here. Yeah. Now we need to make sure that we get Mantine UI running in our ReactJS application. And for this, let's head over to mantine.dev. And here we need to install a few packages. We don't need everything, but I'm a bit lazy, so I grab everything here. Yeah. And then I use npm, copy code, and I open up a new terminal window, paste it in, hit enter. And then once this is done, we also need to make sure that we set up post CSS. So you can already copy this line here. And now let's install post CSS. And while this is installing, let's grab this here. And let's create a new file here in the root directory. And we name it post css.config.js. And we paste this in because we will make use of these variables. And yeah, we are done with installing the dependencies for Mantine. Now we can close this file. We can also close this terminal. And we can go to source, then main.tsx. And what we can do here is we can make use of the Mantine provider. And for some reason, it's not importing automatically. Strange. So I will copy it from here. Yeah. Mantine provider from Mantine core. And in order for Mantine UI to look very beautiful, you need to grab this here, yeah, the CSS, and paste it in above. And now we should be able to use Mantine. So what I do is I go to app.tsx. I get rid of everything in here. Also, I get rid of this useState hook. And now I import text from Mantine core, like so, and I write something in, hello world. There it is. Let's make it bold, FW700. Yeah, it works. So text is a component from Mantine UI, and we are able to use Mantine UI properly. Beautiful. And now I would say let's go to index.css. And here we have a bunch of styles that we don't need. So let's get rid of them. And in app CSS we can do the same. Or maybe we can even get rid of app CSS. Yeah. We only need index CSS, and we can delete this here. We don't need app CSS anymore, and the React logo and white logo we do not need as well. And let's get rid of useState for now. Okay, I would say now let's install Clerk, and we are using Clerk for authentication, and Clerk allows us to set up our authentication really easily in a few minutes, and it's for free. Yeah, you can test it, it doesn't cost any money, and it's a beautiful way to secure your app. Yeah, so only signed in users can use your app and so on. Yeah, it's a nice way, and let me walk you through it. So you can go to clerk.com. You can grab this line here, npm install clerk React. Let's paste it in. Then you need to make sure that you are signed in and that you have created an application. And once you have done this, you get a key that you can copy and paste in your .env file. And I will show it to you, but for some reason it's very slow here. Whenever I try to go to the dashboard here, it takes so much time. But what I can say is it's very easy to set up. Once you are here, you can create a new application, and here you can look for the sign-in methods. Yeah, we are using Google here, and we can also use email. And then, of course, we have to provide an application name, and we can hit create application, like so. And once you have done this, yeah, you'll see your key here. And now, one more step though. Let's go to JW templates here, and you have to create a new template. You can use blank. And then what you have to do here, I've already prepared it. Yeah, here in this account. And once you have done it and you have provided a name, you can hit apply changes. And then you should be good to go. And now what you have to do is, you have to go to your root directory outside of source, create a .env file. And now you need to make sure that you are naming your env variables properly, otherwise it will not work. So it needs to start with white. So it needs to start with white, yeah? White underscore, that's important, otherwise you will not be able to access your env variables. And now let's go to our main.tsx file. And here we will create a new component, const protected route. Which is equal to an arrow function. And this component expects children of type React node, yeah, react.react node. And then we use a fragment. And in this fragment we have signed out. Yeah. And we have to import this component signed out. Are we not able to import it? Why do my auto imports not work? That's strange. Import signed out. And we have to import it from clerk. Yeah, add clerk React, like this. So for the case that we are signed out, then we want to redirect the user to sign in. Yeah. This is also a component that we have to import from clerk. This can be self-closing. And then also, for the case that we are signed in, what we want to do then is we want to render the children, yeah? whatever protected route this may be. Yeah, this is what we want to render for the case that we are signed in. Okay, and of course I need to use return here, like so. Okay, cool. Now, before we keep going here, let's install React Router. So let's type npm I React Router DOM. So we have our front-end routing in place. And now let's create another component. We name it router component, maybe, which is an arrow function. It doesn't expect any props. In here we use navigate, and then which is equal to use navigate, and use navigate comes from React Router DOM. And then in here we return our clerk provider, yeah, from @clerk React. And this provider wraps around everything. And then here this must be publishable key, like so. Here we need to make sure that we are using the correct env, so void clerk publishable key. Let's copy it, paste it in here. Oops. Man, what happened here? And then also we need to pass in another prop, navigate. And here we need to have an arrow function in here. Oh my god, what is this here? Yeah, I have some problems with a few extensions, so I might have to deinstall a few, but maybe we will be good. So yeah, here we have our arrow function, and this arrow function gets access to 2, and then we can say navigate, and we can pass in 2, like so. This is important for routing. And now in here we can have our routes component. And now in source, let's create a new folder, layouts, and let's create a file, route layout.tsx. Let's do RFCE to create a snippet. And if you wonder how I have done it, you can go to extensions and search for React snippets. Yeah, and it is the first one, I think, that I have installed. And let's also create another folder, pages. And here we create a homepage.tsx, RFCE again. And for the root layout to work and render its children, so to speak, we have to put in an outlet component here from React Router DOM, like so. And now let's go back to our routes. Let's have our first route here with a path of an empty string, and then as element we say a root layout. And now we actually have an error. I'm not sure whether you got it as well, so I think we should rename our post CSS here. Let's try to rename it to TS. Like so. And we have to use, maybe let's use export default here. And now let's try again. Okay, maybe let's rename it to JS. Let's try again. It's still not working. Okay, it might be because here we have a problem. So let's make sure we properly import our root layout. Why is this not working here? Oh my god. I am not able to write root properly. Okay, and now this should work. Yeah. And now we have our route here. And this route has also a closing route tag. And since we have provided outlet here in our root layout, yeah, since we have done this, we are able to put another route in this route. And here as element, we use our protected route component, protected route. And then in here we can use our home page, like so. And this inner route here can be self-closing. And now I'm not sure why I have some problems here. Why is that? Okay, we need to import a route from React Router DOM as well. And now I still have a problem with the clerk provider. Why is that? Sorry for this. Make sure you properly close the clerk provider. Like so, yeah. And now we still get an error here. Why is that? It's complaining about, okay, publishable key undefined. So since we are using Vite, please make sure that you are using import.meta.env. Otherwise this will not work. Yeah, this is very important. And now, rather than rendering our app here down below, let's render our router component. And let's wrap our router component in browser router. This is important. Otherwise, our routing will not be working. Let's import it from React Router DOM. We can get rid of unwanted imports. And now let's check it out. Do we have any errors in the terminal? What do we get here? Here I get a warning, I think. Yeah, could not do fast refresh, and it is because we need to use export default. Yeah, so let's say export default router component, like so, default. Let's see if everything is fine now. Yeah, I think so. Okay, and now we see our root layout. Now let's create another folder under source components. And in there, let's create another folder, navigation. And in navigation, let's create a file, sidebar.tsx, rfce, like so. And here in the sidebar component, let's render a user button. And the user button is provided by Clerk. Let's import it. Beautiful. Now let's go to our root layout. And here, let's render our sidebar. Like so. Now let's see what we get here. Do we get anything? No. Do we get any errors here? We don't get any errors. Interesting, interesting. Sidebar. Okay, we see the sidebar, but we do not see the user button. Why is that? Yeah, maybe the user button is somewhere. What we can do is, let's go to our index.css. Let's say star, open up curly brackets. Let's say width 100 VW and height 100 VH. Let's say display flex, justify content center and align item center, like so. Okay, and now one more thing. Here, yeah, in this inner route here, from the root layout, we have to provide index, yeah? And by doing this, whenever we are going to just this address here, we are redirected to our sign in screen here, completely provided by Clerk. So let's try to sign in. And we are actually signed in, yeah? Okay, and it seems, you know, I have this strange issue here. I never had it. And this is because of my CSS code here in my index.css. Yeah, so I'm not sure why this happens. Alright. It seems that I can't use star here. Yeah, so star breaks it. Yeah. So anyway, actually this is now working. Yeah. And here you see our sidebar component and our homepage. And we are able to access it because we are logged in. Yeah, that's what I've already done off screen. Let's try to sign out. We are being redirected to our sign in screen. We can sign in again. And here we are. Beautiful. Okay. And again, how React Router is working is, since I have provided an outlet component here in our root layout, and the root layout wraps around this inner route here, yeah, this is being rendered as the outlet, so to speak, yeah. So yeah, that's what's happening here, and we need index here because whenever we go to this address here, yeah, to simply slash index, yeah, then we want to render this inner route here. Yeah, that's all what's happening here. And yeah, pretty cool. Now we are done with setting up our Clerk. Next, I would say let's build a beautiful sidebar where we also put the clerk user button, so the user can log out and also change his profile and so on. And then also we will have a few other things in our sidebar. Okay, and now I would say let's build a beautiful sidebar. So let's go. Okay, first things first, let's go to index.css. And here we actually do not need everything in here. So we can get rid of all these three here, yeah, the lower three. And we should be fine. We can close this now. We can close main.tsx. We can close everything except sidebar. And now let's get rid of the JSX code in here. And let's create a nav tag. Let's also give it a class name. And here we will make use of CSS module. So let's say import classes from sidebar.module.css. And we have to create this. So here in our navigation folder, let's create sidebar.module.css. And here now we can say classes.navbar. And then here we can target this class like so. And maybe I open this on the right side and the other thing I leave on the left side like so. Let's close the nav tag and first of all, let's have a center component provided by Mantine core. In there, let's have a button. This button has a few props. Variant is subtle. Radius is 100. And on click is nothing at the moment. We just have a function here which does nothing at the moment. And we have to import our button component from Mantine core as well. And in here we render an icon plus, but I think, yeah, actually we need to install this. And we will make use of a library named Tabular Icons React. Yeah. So let's grab this and let's open up a new terminal window, npm I add tabular icons react. Now we should be able to use this. However, my auto import is not working. So I have to do it manually. Yeah, add tabular icons react. And here we use icon plus in our button component with a radius of 100 as well. Let's make it self-closing. And then also let's give this button a class name of classes dot link. Yeah. Then down below this closing button tag, let's have another button. And here you see already a few things, but we will make sure that it looks beautiful, so bear with me. And this button also has a class name of classes.link. Variant is subtle as well. Radius is 100. And it also has an on-click. And then here in this button we render a different icon. We render icon arrow join, like so. Radius 100. Let's make it self-closing, and here are our two icons. And before I keep going, you know, this doesn't look really nice. So first of all, I go to the homepage component, and here I get rid of this text because this is annoying here. Yeah. And now let's style our navbar. First of all, let's give it a width. And here we make use of the rem function to convert pixel into rem. And here we say it should be 80 pixel. Here you see, the width is only 80 pixel now, which is totally fine for our sidebar. Let's give it a height of 100 VH. Let's say inset 0. Let's give it a position of fixed. Yeah, so it stays at one position. Then let's also give it a padding of var. We are using a variable provided by Mantine. And then minus Mantine spacing MD. Yeah, like so. And now display flex. And let's say flex direction is column. And here I need to make a semicolon. Flex direction column. And here you see they are still in a row. And the reason is, let's make use of two center components here. Yeah, and let's wrap them around each button. So let's make another center component here. And let's wrap this closing center tag around this closing button tag. And now you see they are in a column. And now that it is easier to see for you what's happening here, let's give it a background color. And we want to make sure that it works in light and dark mode. So we make use of light-dark, which is a function. And in here we can make use of our Mantine variables. So we type -- Mantine color gray 3, then comma. And we use another variable here, -- Mantine color dark, but here we use 8. And you also will see why we have this once we have a toggle button here for light and dark mode. Yeah, so bear with me. And maybe let's also style these buttons here with a link class. So let's target link. Let's give it a width of rem 50, a height of rem 50. So we have a nice circle. And let's give it a color. We make use of a light-dark. And we pass in our two variables. Yeah, let's say -- Mantine color gray 7 and Mantine color dark 0. Then let's also say what should happen when we hover over it. So ampersand, colon, hover. And then here we change the background color. Again, light-dark. And then we use -- Mantine color gray 0 and -- Mantine color dark 5, like so. And you know what? Maybe we do -- Mantine color gray 2. I think this is better, yeah. And let's also provide a transition property here on this link class. And we say background color 200 milliseconds, ease in out. So we have a nice effect here when hovering over it, yeah? So it changes the color within 200 milliseconds. We could also do 500. Then you see what's happening here, yeah? All right, good. And now let's close this CSS file and let's keep working here on our JSX. So below this closing center tag, let's have a stack component to stack items below each other. And here we say justify center. But first of all, let's import it from Mantine core. Justify center. Align center. And then in here, let's have a button. And this button has a class name of classes.link. A variant of subdil. And on click, we want to toggle the color scheme. Toggle color scheme. And here we get access to this function when making use of the use Mantine color scheme hook, which we will be importing in a bit. But let me finish the rest of the JSX code. And yeah, so here our button component also has a radius of 100. So it's a nice circle, a padding of 0. And then we want to render something in this button. Yeah, we want to render something conditionally. For the case that the color scheme is dark, then we want to show icon moon, which we have to import from Tabla icons React. Yeah, radius 100. Otherwise, we want to show icon sun. Yeah, that's all what we do here. Let's make sure that we import it. Let's close this bracket here. And now let's go above this return function and let's make sure that we make use of our hook. We need to make use of use Mantine color scheme, like so, which comes from Mantine core. And in here we can access color scheme, and we can access toggle color scheme, like so. And now let's try it out. Yay! You see what's happening? And maybe one more thing is, you see these icons here are very small, so we can go to our link class and we can say padding 0, yeah, because this is of padding provided by Mantine, yeah. So every button comes with padding by default. And now we want to make sure that whenever we click here, that we show a beautiful create server modal, yeah, which allows us to create Discord servers for our clone. And once we are able to create some, we are also able to show them, yeah. But I think this order makes sense. First of all, we need to make sure that we see a nice modal here, which allows us to create servers. And then we jump to the backend and we make sure that we are able to create servers and store them in our database. Yeah, this is important. And yeah, once we have the functionality in place for storing the servers in our database, we can also make sure that we are able to fetch all the servers from the database and display them in this sidebar here. Yeah? Alright, we will be using Apollo client, which allows us to sync our front and backend, which works perfectly fine, but we still need some global state for our UI, yeah, which is not database related, so it has nothing to do with our backend, and this is why we need to make sure that we have some global state management in place, and we will be using Zustand, yeah, which is a beautiful state management library, which is very easy to use. So let's install it. npm I Zustand, and now let's create a folder here in source stores, and in here let's create a file general store.ts, like so. In here let's import create from Zustand. Let's import persist, which allows us to store our global state in local storage. You will see this in action in a bit. And you also can see what's in your global state, yeah, by looking in the local storage. This is super cool. And yeah, so persist from Zustand middleware. And now let's create a type named modal. And here we have a type of create server. Yeah. We will also have other types. Yeah, and then as we keep going with the development of our app, we will also have other strings here. Yeah. So the modal type can either be create server, join server, create channel, and so on. Yeah. And now let's create an interface, general store. And in here we have a property, active modal, which is of type modal or null. And then we have an action, set active modal, which takes in the modal, yeah? So either create server or join server, whatsoever, yeah? This is all it does. And by doing it like this here, by specifying the type, it's very type safe. So if I put in create servers with an S, yeah, I would see that I did something wrong. This is the beauty of TypeScript. For now, we are done with our general store interface here. Now let's say export const use general store, which is equal to create. We pass in our general store as type. Then, this is important, make sure to use parentheses here. And then again, use parentheses. And in here, we use persist, open up parentheses again. And then here we have an arrow function, which returns an object. Wait, sorry. I did something wrong here. So persist has an arrow function in it. Yeah, parentheses, curly brackets, like so. And in here we pass in set. And now we define the initial values for our properties in our state. And for now we have only this thing here, yeah. So we can say active modal is null, yeah. And now we have to define our setter, yeah, our action for setting the active modal. So set active modal, this is what we name it. And then here we pass in our modal of type modal or null. And then here we call set, and we set active modal to the value whatever is modal, yeah, which can be, for example, create server. Let's close it properly, like so. And now, after this curly bracket here, we also need to provide another object, with a name property, and we name it general store. And this will be the name in our local storage. Yeah, you will see this in action in a bit. And here I need to have a curly bracket and a round bracket like so. Sorry for this. And for now we are done with our general store. Let's close it. And now for toggling our modals, let's create a reusable use modal hook, which will be super helpful. So under source, let's create a folder, hooks. And in here, let's create a file, useModal.ts. In here, let's import modal, yeah, from our general store. And let's import use general store. Yeah, that is what we have created here. Now let's create a function, use modal, which expects an argument, modal type, of type modal. And then let's get the active modal from our global state by saying const active modal is equal to use general store. In here we have a function which gets access to state, and it returns state.activeModal, like so. And then let's also get the setter, yeah, setActiveModal, which we can access by state.setActive here. And let's also get the setter, yeah, setActiveModal, yeah, which we can access by state.setActiveModal. Then let's create another const is open, which is a boolean. And here we say active modal triple equal modal type. Yeah? For this case, we want to show the corresponding modal. And now let's create another function here, const open modal, which is an arrow function. And here we say set active modal to modal type. Yeah? Let's also create another function, close modal. And here we simply set the active modal. And in here we set the active modal to null. And then we return is open, open modal, and close modal, like so. Yeah, so by putting this into a hook, we do not need to write this logic again, and again. We can simply import this use modal hook, pass in the modal type, and then we simply get access to these variables which are returned from this hook. Yeah. So whenever you have something which you need quite often, it's always good to put it in a custom made hook. Okay, so let's close this. And now I would say let's build a beautiful create server modal, which we can toggle via this button here. So we go to components, and under components we create a modals folder, and in here we create server modal.tsx file, rfce, and here we make use of the modal component provided by Mantine core, like so. And now you will see our hook in action. Let's say const curly brackets, and then here we use our hook, use modal, like so. We have to import him, use modal. Why I'm not able to import him? Did I forget to export? Yes, I forgot it. So now let's import him. And then in here, I get nice auto-completion because we properly typed it and use the full power of TypeScript. Yeah, so let's use create server here. And then here we get access to is open and close modal, like so. And now here this modal component expects props. Opened, we pass in is open. And on close, we pass in close modal, like so. And now we can go to our main.tsx file. And here, on this level here, we want to be able to create servers. Yeah, so here in this under root layout, yeah, above home page, in this inner route, let's put our modal, create server modal, like so. Okay, and now we need to go back to our sidebar. Here we also need to use our hook now, but we simply can say const create server modal is equal to use modal, and we pass in create server, like so. Now we can grab this variable, go down to this button here, yeah, with icon plus, and here we have on click, and we pass in create server modal, open modal, like this. Yeah, simple as that. And now let's try it out. And what you see is a beautiful modal. Yeah, working nicely, also in light mode. Beautiful. Great job. Okay, now let's make sure that our create server modal looks very, very beautiful. So let's keep working on our JSX. So here on this modal tag, let's provide a title of create server. And in here, let's have a text. Give your server a personality with a name and an image. You can always change it later. Now, before we keep going with the JSX, let's create another const form, which is equal to use form provided by Mantine as well, Mantine core, but I'm not able to import it automatically. Yeah, so make sure you import it from Mantine hooks, I think. Oh no, sorry, from add Mantine form, like so. And now for our form, let's provide initial values. And here we simply say name, the server name, and initially it's an empty string, like so. Then below this initial value property, let's have a validate property. And in here we say name, colon, then we get access to the value. And we say for the case that there is no name, yeah, so meaning the user has not inputted any letters, then we want to show please enter a name, like so. And let's make sure that we close everything properly. All right, now below this closing text tag, let's have a form tag with onSubmit, and here we say form.onSubmit, and then in here let's run an arrow function and we call on submit. And actually, at the moment, we do not have the functionality for this in place. So we will create this on the backend and then we will be able to use it. Alright. And for now, we simply have an empty arrow function here. Let's close our form tag. In here, let's have a stack component to stack items below each other. And then let's have a flex component here with justify center and align center and direction of column. Let me import everything. Stack. Yeah, everything is imported from Mantine core. Direction is column. Let's close this flex component. And in here we want to show something conditionally for the case that we do not have an image preview. Then we want to render a drop zone. And we have to import it manually, I think. Where does drop zone come from? Alright, from Mantine drop zone. Import drop zone from Mantine drop zone. Alright, let's make sure that we close this properly. And you know what? Let's simply create this image preview variable. It's very simple. We say const and then square brackets, image preview, set image preview. We are using use state and it can be either a string or null. Yeah, that's all. Let's give this drop zone here a class name. And here we need to make sure that we import classes from create server modal.module.css. Let's also create this file here under modals. Create server modal.module.css. Let's close a few tabs here. Let's open up this CSS file to the right. And the other one we can leave on the left side, like so. Alright, now class name is classes.dropZone. Let's say margin top of MD. And to get rid of this error here with the drop zone tag, I have to provide some other props. Let's say on drop. And here we say we run an empty arrow function like so. On drop. Then also we need on reject. No, we don't need it actually. And let's also say except is equal to image mime type, which we can import from Mantine drop zone, like so. All right. Now in our drop zone, let's render a group component from Mantine core. Let's give it a style of min height of rem 100. And let's say pointer events none. Pointer events none, like so. Let's make sure we import rem from Mantine core. Let's also make sure that we close our group properly. And now in our group, we need to have a drop zone dot accept. And in here, let's have an icon of icon upload from Tabla Icons React. Let's give it a size 3.2 rem. Let's give it a stroke of 1.5. Let's make it self-closing. Down below, let's have drop zone reject. Let's close it. In here, let's have icon X and the same size and stroke. Let's import icon X. Below we have drop zone idle, and here we have icon upload. We can use size is the same and stroke is the same as well, and here you'll see it. Below this closing drop zone idle tag, let's have a fragment. In here, let's have a text with a size of XL inline. Let's close this tag properly. In here, let's say drag images here or click to select files. Now below this closing text tag, let's have another text with a size of SM. Let's say C is dimmed, inline, MT for margin top, 7. And here let's say upload a server icon. And in this text tag, let's say upload a server icon. Now let's style our drop zone a bit more. We already provided a drop zone class here. So let's target it here in our CSS file. .drop zone. Let's give it a width of 100%, a height of 100%. Let's give it a border radius of rem 5. Let's give it a padding of var -- Mantine spacing md. Let's give it a background color. Here again we can say light, dark. And in here let's say var -- Mantine color scheme light. Otherwise -- Mantine color scheme dark, like so. I'm not sure if this works actually. It does not work. So what we do is, I already forgot how these variables are named. So I go to a CSS file here and I simply copy these variables here. So let's paste them in. Let's paste them in. Alright, this is very bright. So here for dark, let's make it dark and then maybe dark 4 or something like this. Dark 5, dark 6. Maybe dark 6. Maybe dark 6 or so. Or dark 5. Maybe dark 5 is good. And for light mode, Yeah, maybe 3 is alright. Let's keep going. Let's say font size. Let's see. Mantine font size MD, how this looks. Let's say cursor is pointer. Let's give it a transition of background color 300 milliseconds ease. And then let's say ampersand colon hover. And then we say background color light dark again. And then let's see how this looks. Yeah, it's up to your personal preferences, but maybe we leave it like this, or should we make it even 1? Yeah, not really sure. Maybe we leave it like this and in dark mode. Okay, now let's make sure that we are able to see a beautiful image preview. Let's go to our JSX again. And now below this drop zone, for the case that we have an image preview, then we want to render a flex component with a position of relative W of RAM 150 pixel, H of RAM of 150 pixel, MT MD. Let's close this flex tag. And let me open up the modal again. In here, let's have a fragment. And then let's have a button in here. This button has a few properties. Position of absolute. Then let's give it a style. And by the way, sometimes I use inline style, sometimes I put it in a CSS file. Yeah, it's also a bit up to you, to your preferences. The thing is, which I don't like very much, is sometimes you can use Mantine props like this. Yeah, this works, or like here and here. Yeah, this works. But sometimes you need to use inline style or a CSS file because these props are not provided by Mantine. So here let's say z-index is 1, border radius is 50%, padding is 0, width is rem of 30, height is rem of 30, and top is 0, like so. And before we keep going, let's put an icon in here, icon X, with a color of white. Let's make it self-closing. Let's also put something more on this button. Let's give it a color of red. Yeah, this is also provided by Mantine, so I can write it like this. And let's give it an on click. And here let's say set image preview to null. And I need to make sure that we have imported our button properly. And I would say let's try it out. So we can click here. Let's choose an image. And currently we don't see anything, which makes sense because we need an image component, which is also provided by Mantine. So down below this closing button tag, let's have an image, which is self-closing. And this image has a source of image preview. And I have to import it properly. Why this is never working? Yeah, so let's try it out again. Okay, we do not see anything, and it is, I think, because, yeah, we need to give it a width. of RAM of 150 pixel and a height of RAM of 150 pixel. And now, before we keep going here with our JSX, let's make another function which we need for our drop zone. So let's go to our drop zone. Here we have on drop, and here we need to provide something. So let's say files. Yeah, here we get access to the files, and then here we can run our handle drop zone change like so, and we pass in files. Now let's create this function, handle drop zone change, and let's type this function colon, and let's say drop zone props provided by Mantine drop zone, and then square brackets on drop like so. And now you see that files is properly typed. Alright, now for the case that there are no files, yeah, meaning files.length is 0, then we want to set the image preview to null, and yeah, we can return. So we are done with the function. Otherwise, we create an instance of a reader by saying const reader is equal to a new file reader, which is a standard browser API. And then we can say reader on load. Here we get access to the event in this function. And then we can set our image preview, yeah, to e.target.result like so. And we can type it as string. And then let's also create another local state here, maybe above here. Let's say const file and set file, which is equal to ReactJS and then file or null. And why we have this is we actually want to place our file in here as binary, and this is what we send to our backend. Yeah? But for now, for the purpose of displaying it here as preview, it is not relevant, but only when we are sending it to the backend. And how this works, you will see in a bit. But what we can do here already is we can say set file, and then we say files at position 0, yeah, because files is an array, and we only have one image in here. Yeah, so this is why we say file 0. And then we say reader.read as data URL, and we pass in files at position 0. Now let's see if we see something. Oh, there it is. And you see we have a nice button here. And let's see what happens when clicking on it. Yay, the image is gone. Yeah? Now let's put a bit more work in the styling of this image. It looks already great, but there are still a few more things to do. Let's give our image a border radius of 50. Yeah, so we can say radius, and let's say 50%. Let's give it a position of absolute. And now maybe let's make sure that the button is on the right side. So we can say here on our button tag, underneath top 0, let's say right 10 maybe. Oops. Maybe something like this, yeah. Maybe 15. Yeah, maybe 15 or so, yeah. Or or 18. Yeah, something like this, yeah. It doesn't need to be perfect, but I think this is fine. And now below these closing brackets and this closing flex tag, let's have a text input. Text input coming from Mantine core with a label of server name, a placeholder of enter your server name, with a placeholder of enter server name, and we do not need required because we have validation provided by Mantine. And we can here say curly brackets dot 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 and then form.get input props, and here we pass in our name. And this makes sure that we have on-change value and everything set up for us. Yeah. So we do not need to do any further work here. It works out of the box. Yeah. So everything is properly set up. And you see also the text input looks already beautiful. One more thing though, we need to have an error property here. And here we need to say form errors dot name. Yeah, and here we say name, and we say name because we have defined it here. Yeah. Now below this text input, let's have a button with a W of 30%. Let's have a type of submit variant, for example gradient, to make it a little bit more interesting and not so boring. Margin top of MD. Let's close the button, and in here let's say create server. There it is, yeah. And now let's try out the validation. And here you see we have our validation in place, yeah, working perfectly. And what we also could do is, let's say, disabled for the case that we have form errors dot name. Yeah, does this work? Oh, it works. Yeah, you see the button is disabled. Once I type something, it's gone. But here we have an error. Why is this? Ah, okay. So let's say it like this. Maybe let's use double exclamation mark. And now here we get an error because name can be undefined. It can be an empty string. And this expects either true or false. So we use double exclamation mark, yeah, to turn this into a boolean. Now it's either true or false, and it's not undefined anymore. And now I think we have a beautiful create server modal in place, or wouldn't you say it's beautiful? Let's also check it out in light mode. Yeah, maybe this dimmed color is not so nice. Yeah, I'm not sure about this, but I leave it like this now. I think it's alright. And before we keep going with anything here on the front end, I would say let's start building out our back end so we are able to create a server. And once we are able to create a server, we make sure that we are able to fetch all the servers from the back end in order to display them here in our sidebar. Yeah? Does this sound like a great plan? I think so. So let's keep going. Okay, now let's start to work on our backend. So here we need to leave the frontend folder, and then we have to go into our backend folder, Discord backend, like so, and code empty space dot. Here is our NestJS application, and we can directly run it. npm run start :dev, and here you'll see all the commands that we have. We run this command currently. Yeah. Okay, this seems to be working. Okay, now for our NestJS application to be able to talk to databases, we will make use of Docker, and Docker helps us to run databases in a container, so we do not need to install anything. And in our Docker container, we will be running a Postgres database as well as a Redis database. First of all, make sure you have Docker Desktop installed here. Yeah, and once you have done this, you can create a file here in this root directory, docker-compose yml, sorry. And then we will have two services here, but first of all, let's specify a version. But this is not so important. For example, 3.7. And now we can go to our services. Here we will have Postgres. And then as image, we use Postgres version 12.1, for example. And restart we can set to always. Then as ports, we can leave it like this. This is the standard port. And then here we could also leave it like this. Yeah. So this is all right. And volumes, we can leave it like this. Yeah, it should be all good. Now, make sure that you have a second service, which is Redis. And the reason is why we use Redis is Redis will help us in conjunction with our GraphQL subscriptions to build a well scalable app. Yeah. So once you have a lot of users and stuff like this, you need to use something like Redis in conjunction with subscriptions. Otherwise, you will get a scaling problem. So this is why we use Redis. For now, it's not so important, but we can already set it up. So let's say image, and then we say Redis : latest. Yeah, we could also say the same here. Maybe we can do it, or maybe we leave it like this because otherwise we might run into issues. So because I have tested it previously. And then as ports, we can specify the standard port, yeah, 6379. And then we are almost good to go. But we also need to specify volumes here. And here we can say my Postgres data, like so, and colon. And this will help us to run our two databases in a container. So you don't need to install Postgres or Redis on your system. Yeah, you can simply run it in a container. Okay, next I would say let's set up Prisma. So let's grab this line here, npm install prisma -- save dev. Let's open up a new terminal window, paste it in. And then also we need to run npx prisma init. And this will create a Prisma folder here with a schema.prisma file in it. And here you see it refers to a URL variable, database URL in our env file. And by default, it uses as provider Postgres, which is correct. Now we need to go to our env file here, which was created for us. And here you see we need to adjust a few things. So let's open up Docker Compose YAML on the right side. And now let me make it like this. So we have Postgres for everything. Yeah. So instead of John Doe, we have Postgres. Postgres password is Postgres as well. And then also our database name is Postgres, like so. Yeah, not my DB, but Postgres. And this should be all good now. Now we can close everything here. And I would say now it's time for us to write some models. Yeah, and models will represent the shape of our tables in our Postgres database. So this is what we will be doing next. So let's create our first model here, which is model profile. It has an ID, which is of type int, and then add ID default auto increment like this. So this means ID will be our primary key and it will be incremented automatically. So we do not need to do anything with it. And yeah, it's unique by default. So we don't need to worry about it. It's a unique identifier by default. And now next is a name, which is of type string. Then we have an image URL, which is of type string as well. And we have an email, which is of type string. And we can say it should be unique. So there can only be one user in our database with a specific email. So there cannot be two users with the same email. Next, we will have a couple of relations. So a profile can have many servers. And we have to create our server model as well. Then it can also have members of type member array. And it can have channels of type channel array. And then also it can have created at, which is of type datetime. And then we use at default now. Yeah. And this will automatically take the current time, yeah, for created at, which makes sense. And then also let's have updated at. There we use datetime as well as type, and then at updated at. And if you wonder why I used at default and then at updated at, I'm not really sure if we could use at default now for both cases. I would need to test it, but maybe we just leave it like this now, so we are on the safe side. Okay, now let's create our server model. Here again we use ID and the same as above. You already know the deal. Then we have a name of type string, an image URL of type string. Then we have an invite code of type string, and this is also unique. So we can find a single server by its invite code. Then it also has a profile ID of type int. And then here we have our profile relation of type profile, which refers to the profile above here, yeah. And here we say add relation fields profile ID, which is this thing here, and profile ID references ID here on this profile model, yeah. And then we say on delete cascade. And this means whenever the parent, so to speak, which is the profile, has been deleted, the server will be deleted as well, yeah. This is what on delete cascade basically means. Okay, let's keep going. So what else do we need? Members is of type member array. And then also channels, which is of type channel array. And then again, we have the same as above. So I will simply copy it, yeah, created at and updated at. And now let's also use at index parentheses square brackets profile ID, like so. Now next we will create a little enum with the name of member role, like so. And in here we will have 3 values: admin, moderator, and guest, like so. Now let's create our member model. Now let's create our member model, model member. And here we will also have an ID of type int, same as above here. Then we will have a profile ID of type int. And then we will have our profile relation of type profile. And then again, we use the profile ID here, which is our foreign key, which refers to the ID on the profile model. Yeah. And here again we use onDelete cascade. Okay. Next we do the same for the server. So we have server ID as foreign key, and then server of type server refers to the ID with the foreign key of server ID. Then also we have messages of type message array and direct messages of type direct message array, like so. And then again, as above, so below, we have created it and updated it. And we will have 2 indexes. So let's say add index, parentheses, square brackets, profile ID and server ID, like so. And this index here is different from the unique operator. And this means that the profile ID and server ID will be an index, and this helps us to read data quicker. No? So whenever a profile ID or server ID is involved in a query, we will be able to get the data quicker, so to speak. Yeah, but it's not really that important here. And now let's create another enum channel type, and this can be either text or uppercase, text, audio, or video, like so. Now let's create our model channel, and then here ID of type int, and then we use add ID default auto increment. Then we have a name of type string, a type of type channel type with the default value of text. We have a profile ID as our foreign key. And then we have our profile relation here again. Yeah, and this is the same again as here. Then also we have a server ID as foreign key of type int, and a server here as our relation, same as above. And then we have messages of type message array, and we have our created add and updated add. And then also we have our index here of profile ID and server ID. Now, to get rid of this error here, let's create our model message. Also with an ID of type int and ID default auto increment. A message can have content of type string. It can have a file URL because a message can have an image. And this is of type string, and then question mark because this is optional. You don't have to send an image. Then we have member ID of type int. Then we have our member relation. And here we say relation, member ID, references ID, and then also on delete cascade. Next we have our channel ID of type int and our channel. Then we have a boolean deleted, which is by default false. And then created at and updated at. And then here at index, we use channel ID and member ID. Now let's have our next model, direct message. And direct message is very similar. So we have our ID here. Then we have content of type string. We have file URL of type string question mark. Then we have our member ID and our member. Yeah, this is all the same as above. But then here we have a conversation ID of type int and then our conversation. Yeah. And then also we have deleted, which is a boolean. By default it's false. And we have created at and updated at. And we have the same indices here. So member ID and conversation ID as index. Okay, now let's create our model conversation. We can grab the ID from above and paste it in. Here we have member1 ID of type int. And then we have our member1 relation here. And then we do the same with member2, like so. And then down below we have also direct messages. These are messages between two people in a conversation. A conversation can only have two members. Yeah? So direct message array. And we say add unique member1 ID and member2 ID. So this means there can only be one conversation with member1 ID and member2 ID. There can't be two conversations of it. Yeah? This is what this line does. And then also let's give it an index, member1 ID and member2 ID. And then also, sorry, I forgot a couple of things. We need our deleted, which is a boolean. By default it's false. And let's also add created at and updated. And now here we get an error. And this is because member1 and member2 in model conversation both refer to member. Please provide different relation names for them by adding add relation name. Okay, so what we need to do here is the following. Add relation. Let's add a string. And let's say this relation is named member1. And then down below we say this should be named member2, like so. And here we still get an error. Error validating field member1 in model conversation. The relation field member1 on model conversation is missing an opposite relation field on the model member. Yeah, so let's go to our member model. And now here in our member model, we can say conversations initiated. And we say this is of type conversation. And then we say add relation member1 here, yeah, because down below we named it member1 and you see the error is gone. Yeah, and now let's do the same for member2. So let's go back to our member model. And here we say conversations received. And then we provide member2 here as relation. So we should be fine now. I hope I did not make any mistakes here. And for the case you do not want to write it by your own, please go to my GitHub and you can simply copy everything and paste it in, so you don't run into any issues. And sorry, I made a bad mistake here. Server and server ID. I don't know why I put this here. Yeah. If you have it as well, get rid of it. Yeah, it doesn't belong to direct message. Why is he adding this automatically? That's strange. I have no idea. Why is he adding this? Okay, somehow it has been added automatically. So please make sure on your server model that you do not have direct message, because this is wrong. Now, what you can do is you can run npx prisma migrate dev -- name init. Let's grab it. Let's go to the terminal. Let's paste it in. Okay, and this has failed now, and this makes sense because we still have to boot up our container here. So we can connect to our database. And you need to make sure that you have your Docker app running. And then you can do docker-compose up like so. And now I see we get another error here, and it is because we have specified Postgres network here. We don't need this, so you can delete this like so. And now let's try it out again. And here I get another error, and it is because I already have an out container. So I need to fix this, but you should not have this problem. Or maybe you have it if you have followed a previous tutorial of mine, then you might get it as well because you already have this container. So a simple fix for this for now is to use a different name. So let's go under Postgres, and then here underneath image, let's say container name Postgres. Like this, yeah. Let's give it a name and my container, and we should not have any other containers named Postgres, or we can simply name it like this. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Now let's try it again. And you know, I also seem to have an out container with the same name here. So underneath Redis, let's also provide a container name of Redis. And now let's try it out again. Okay, and for the case that you have the same error as me, what you need to do is you need to run docker ps. Then you see the running containers. And then you can say docker stop. And then you use the container ID to stop the container. And then you should be able to run docker compose up like so. Let's try it out again. Okay, beautiful. This seems to be working. And now we can go back to our NestJS Prisma documentation. And we can grab this here, npx prisma migrate dev -- name init. Like so. Let's paste it in, hit enter, and we are done. Yeah, we have created a migration file in migrations under Prisma, and here it is. Yeah, you see a couple of tables have been created and so on with all the foreign keys and relations. And what we can do next is we can do npx prisma studio, and here we should see all our models and so on with the columns and everything. Perfect. Now, in order for us to perform CRUD operations with our database, we need to install the Prisma client here. So you have to grab this line, npm install add Prisma client. So I will open up a new terminal window. And then also here, we have to grab this here. And this is for creating our Prisma service here. Yeah, this you simply need to copy this. And then under source, let's create a new file. Prisma.service.ts. And you simply paste it in and we are done with it. Like so. And now you see we get some problems here, and it is because in our eslint.rc.js we can remove this second one here. Yeah? Under extends, we don't need the second plugin, and now this error should be gone here. Okay, beautiful. And now we are able to talk with our database and also to perform CRUD operations, meaning create, read, update, and delete. And everything will be type safe and so on. It's very beautiful. But before we keep going, let's set up GraphQL for our NestJS application. So let's head over to the corresponding NestJS docs here, GraphQL quick start, and here you'll see we have a line, npm install. Let's grab this one, let's paste it in, and let's install it. Okay, now let's also install something else. Let's install npm I add NestJS serve static. We need this so our NestJS application is able to serve images from the backend that we can display on our front end. Yeah, so this is why we need this. So please make sure you have installed this. And for now we should be good here. So let's close this terminal window. Let's head over to our app module.ts file. Under imports, we can say serve static module for root, parentheses, curly brackets, and we have to import it from NestJS serve static, and then we say our root path is join, and then we say dir name, comma, and then dot dot dot, comma, public. And of course, this must be root path. So this means we are currently here under source, and we simply go one step back. So our path will be outside of source, and here we will have a public folder. And in this public folder, we will store all our images that will be served on our front end. And then we need to say serve root here, and this will be simply slash, like so. Yeah, so we do not need to write public whenever we want to serve images from our public folder. Alright, cool. Next, let's make use of our GraphQL module. GraphQL module for root async. Yeah, we need to use async here because we want to perform a few async operations in here, but we will start performing them later when working with WebSockets and so on. For now, we will not be implementing them, but we still can use this here. And now let's make sure we import it correctly. GraphQL module from NestJS GraphQL. And then also here we need to have imports. For now we don't need any. We also need inject, where we can inject dependencies that we need. For example, different services and so on. Later we will inject the config service and the token service in order to validate JWT tokens coming from our front end. And this will be done so only correctly authenticated users are able to subscribe to our backend. Yeah? Because we are working with subscriptions for real-time updates in our application, and we want to make sure that only authenticated users are able to subscribe. And this is why we need a token service that we will be creating. And because the token service has a method which is async, we need to use for root async here. And yeah, so far so good. Then let's also say driver, which is Apollo driver. Apollo driver, like so. And I need to import it correctly. Oops, this is not correct. Where do I get the Apollo driver? Yeah, we get the Apollo driver from @NestJS Apollo, like so. And then down below driver, let's have a use factory function. And this will be async. You will see why this is async later. And in here we need to return a few things. First of all, let's say playground true. So we have a nice UI for our browser. So we can perform queries and mutations and subscriptions there. We can also see our schema and so on. You will see this in action in a bit. And then also we have auto schema file. And now in here we need to return an object, like so. And in here we say auto schema file. We use join process.cvd for current working directory. And then we say src schema JQL. Yeah. So under source we will have a schema.jql file, which will be auto-generated for us. Then let's say sort schema true. Then here we will have subscriptions. But for now we will not implement this. We will do that later. Okay, now let's close our app.module and let's go to our main.ts file and let's put in some work here. So underneath app here, let's say app enable course. And then in here, let's provide an object. Let's say origin. And here, let's make it an array. HTTP 127.0.1:5173. Let's copy this, paste it in again. Let's make sure it's a string. And we replace this IP address with localhost, like so. Okay. Now down below, let's say allowed headers. Let's make it an array. Let's say accept authorization, content type, X requested with, and the last one is important, otherwise we will run into issues. Require pre-flight, like so. Okay, now let's also install another package, GraphQL upload, and we need this to store our files coming from the front end on our back end. So we will be able to send images from our front end and store them in the public folder here. So let's install npm I, let me clear it, npm I GraphQL upload, and here it is important to install a specific version. So it must be this version here. Otherwise you will run into issues. So make sure to install it like this. And then you have to import it in a special way. So let's say import star as GraphQL upload express from GraphQL-upload / GraphQL upload express.js, like so. And then you can say above await app listen, you can say app.use GraphQL upload express, and here you can specify, and then actually we don't need this default here, and we have to close it correctly like so. Yeah, you can specify a max file size, and max files we can set to 1 because we only want to be able to send one file, and we should be fine here. So let's see if we got any errors. Of course we got errors. So what are the errors? Okay, a query root type must be provided. This totally makes sense. So it's time to create our first module with a service and a resolver. So let's do that. Let's say nest g for generate module server, like so. Now let's say nest g service server, like so. And then also let's do the same for resolver. Okay, and now we need to create a query here in order to get rid of this error. So let's go to our server module, and then here we have our resolver. And in here let's write our first query. So let's use the query decorator from NestJS GraphQL. And this is a very simple query which returns a string. And we say async, and we return hello world, like so. Let's close it correctly. And we are done. No error here. And here's a beautiful playground. We can show our schema. Currently we just have one query with the name of hello. And now we can say query hello, like this. Hit play. And here you see hello, because we named our query hello here. We can also name it hello world, or maybe hello world query. And you will see that it updates accordingly here. Yeah. So now when hitting the button again, oh, we get an error. Why is this? Ah, of course, here we need to say hello world now. Hello world query, I mean. And here you see how this works now, yeah? Okay, nice. Now in our server module, let's create a new file. And let's name it types.ts. And in here we will write TypeScript code, and this TypeScript code will be used to generate our GraphQL schema. So let's do that now. First of all, we need to use the object type decorator from NestJS GraphQL like this. And then we create our first class, which is channel. And here for each field, we need to use the field decorator from NestJS GraphQL as well. ID of type number we have another field which can be nullable. So on our front end, we do not need to fetch this. And then we can say name string like so. Then we have another field, nullable true, or actually we don't need nullable true because we need this for sure. So what we say here, arrow function, which returns a channel type, like so. And we have to create this one. We will do this in a bit. And let's say type is channel type, like so. And in here, actually we don't need to use an arrow function here and stuff like this, because we simply return a string, because we say created at should be a string. Yeah, then we don't need to make it like this. And let's also have another field, updated at, which is also a string. And then let's have a field, it's an arrow function, and then array member, like so, and it can be nullable. Down below, members, member array. And we also have to create this member object type. Now down below, let's say export enum channel type. And then we say text all uppercase is equal to text all uppercase, like this. Let's do the same for audio and for video, like so. Let's close it correctly. And in order for us to be able to use it with GraphQL, we need to say register enum type. We need to pass in the channel type. Then we have to provide curly brackets. And let's close it correctly. And in here, let's say name, channel type. And let's give it a description of defines the type of channel, like so. And then let's also create our server. So again, we use object type, export class server. We have our ID. We have our name. We have another field, image URL, which is a string as well. We have another field, which is nullable. So we do not need to fetch it on the front end. And then we say invite code, which is a string as well. Then let's have a field, profile ID, number. Then let's have a profile here, which we also have to create. And let's make it nullable. And we say profile and profile. Let's have another field. Here we say we want to return array member. And this can be nullable. And maybe here we say items and list. So the items can be null as well as the array. Yeah, this is what items and list means. And yeah, members, member array like this. And let's do the same for channel, like so. Okay. Now, before we keep going, let's make sure that we create profile and member. And you might be wondering why here I just can use it like this or here, but here I need to provide an arrow function which returns profile, for example, or member. And the reason is here we are referencing another object type. And in order for this to be working, you need to do it like this, yeah. Whereas here you just refer to a string and you don't need to have an arrow function here. Okay. Now let's create another module. Let's create NestJS module and let's say profile. And let's also say member. Now let's go to our profile module. Let's create a new file. Profile.type.ts. Yeah, we have just one object type here. Let's say object type. Let's import it from NestJS GraphQL. Export class profile, which has a field ID of type number. We also have to import field from NestJS GraphQL. Then let's say field, which can be nullable, which is email of type string. Then also let's have a name field of type string. And then let's have another field with an arrow function which returns array server, which we have to import from our server module. And we can say nullable true, or maybe we say nullable items and lists. Yeah, this is maybe better. And let's say servers is of type server array. Let's also have another field. Yeah, and we need it for sure. We always need to fetch it. So let's say image URL of type string. And then last but not least, field, which returns array channel. And then we say channel array. And we need to import channel from server types like this. Okay. Now let's go to our member module. And here let's create a file, member types.ts. Let's make use of object type, export class member. Let's have our field decorator here and ID of number. Then in here, let's return profile, comma, nullable. And then we say profile of type profile. Let's make sure that we import profile from our profile module. Let's have a field with a profile ID of type number. Let's have another field where we return the server here, which can be nullable. And let's say server of type server. Let's make sure that we import server from our server module. Then let's have a field. Here we return member role, like so. And we actually have to create this one, this enum. Let's have another field, which can be nullable. And this will be created at, which is of type string. Let's make the same for updated at. And I forgot something here. Let's also make another field with the name of image URL of type string. And also we want to have an email field of type string. And a profile should have a name, of course, of type string, like so. Now let's create our enum member role. And here we say moderator all uppercase. is equal to moderator. Then admin is equal to admin, and guest is equal to guest, like this. Now we need to make sure that we register the enum type so GraphQL is able to use it. We say register enum type member role. We give it a name of a member role and a description of defines the role of a member. Defines the role of a member on a server, like this. Yeah, and let's make sure that we close it correctly. Now let's go back to our server types here, and let's make sure that we import everything. Profile here, and the error is gone. Do we have any errors here? No, we are fine. Okay, let's close everything. Okay, now I would say let's start working on our profile module, and the reason being, once a user has been signed in via clerk, we want to make sure that we store him in our database. And we named it profile instead of user, but this doesn't really matter. And once we are done with our profile module and we have a user or a profile in our database, we actually can work on the functionality for creating servers, yeah, and displaying them. But for that, we need an actual user or profile in our database. So yeah, let's work on this now. So in our profile, let's generate two more files. Let's say nestg, then we say service profile. This will create a profile service. There it is. And let's also create a corresponding resolver like this. Now let's jump to our profile service. Here it is. And here we need to do dependency injection via constructor. Here in these parentheses, let's say private read only Prisma of type Prisma service. Prisma service like this. We do not need to import Prisma. And now we are able to use this Prisma service in our class here. Okay. First of all, let's create a method async create profile, which takes in an argument named create profile DTO, for example, and this is of type create profile DTO like this. And now actually maybe let's create this. So in our profile module, let's create a file dto.ts, and in here we can make use of the input type decorator, defining what we expect to come from our front end. Export class create profile DTO. Yeah. So here we want to say is string. We want to make sure that it is a string. Is string. And we actually need to install this. So please make sure that you install class validator. So here npm I class dash validator, and then you can import is string and is not empty from class validator, and this must be in uppercase I. Let's also say is not empty, and then we say add field, and we say name of type string. And then also we expect an email and an image URL. And this is all coming from Clerk. And you will see this soon, so don't worry. Okay. Now we can import this here in our profile service. And now let's say const profile is equal to await this Prisma profile create. And now in here, let's say const profile is equal to await this Prisma profile find unique. We can use find unique here because we said that email is unique in our schema.prisma file. So here we say where email colon create profile DTO email. And then for the case that we have a profile, we simply return profile because we do not want to create another profile. Yeah, because we already have one. And then for the case that we do not have a profile, then we want to create one. Yeah. And so we say profile.create. We say data and we pass in our create profile DTO like this. And let's close it correctly. Next, let's also have two other methods. Get profile by ID. And then because the ID is unique by default, we can use find unique again. And we put in the ID like this. Let's close everything correctly. And now below where, let's say include. So we want to load relations. And here we say servers. We want to have the servers. And then we do not only want to have the servers, but also we want to have the channels on the server. Yeah, so we have to say channels true as well. Okay. And then we have another method, which is very similar, get profile by email, which takes in an argument of name email of type string. And then here we say return this Prisma profile, find unique, where email. And then also we include servers and the channels on the server. Okay. We are done with our profile service. Congratulations. Let's close this. Now let's go to our profile resolver. And here let's make use of the mutation decorator. Mutation from NestJS GraphQL. And here we say we want to return a profile type. Like this. Make sure to import profile from profile type. And then let's say async create profile. And here we expect args from the front end named input. And then we can just say input create profile DTO like this. And now let's open up the function body here. And first of all, let's make sure that we have imported args correctly from NestJS GraphQL. And then we say return. And here I forgot to make dependency injection constructor. We need to use our profile service here, yeah? Let's import him, profile service like this. And now we can say return. This profile service create profile input like this. For now, let's also have a query. Query which returns a profile. And let's say async get profile by ID. And here as args, we expect an argument named profile ID. And we name it profile ID of type number, like this. And then here we say return this profile service get profile by ID, and we pass in the profile ID. Okay, make sure to import query properly like this. Now, one more thing though. We want to make sure that only correctly authenticated users are able to create a profile in our database. Yeah? And for this, we need to make use of guards in NestJS. So let's create an auth guard. So maybe let's create a folder here named auth. And in here, let's create a file, auth.guard.ts. And this must be injectable, provided by NestJS Common. So we can use it in a providers array of a module. And then we say export class, GraphQL auth guard implements can activate. All right, and can activate is an interface which tells us that we need to implement a method called can activate. Now in our constructor we need to perform dependency injection again. We need a couple of things here. We need to have JWT service of type JWT service, and this is what we have to install, I think. So let's open up our terminal, and we actually need to say npm I add NestJS, yeah, add NestJS JWT, like this. Let's hit enter and let's import it. Okay, I'm not able to import it, so let's import it like this. JWT service from NestJS JWT. And now we should be fine. We could also use the config service to access the variables here in our .env file, but we can also use process.env. Yeah, so maybe we'll use this. All right, so now let's say async can activate. It takes an argument of context, which is of type execution. Context, execution context, like this. And I'm not able to write it properly, sorry for this. Execution context, which actually comes from NestJS Common. And here can activate. Oh my god, sorry for this. Async can activate. And what am I doing here? We do not need to do it in the constructor here. Oh my god. Yeah, so please make sure to not put anything in these curly brackets. So we need to put it here. And injectable comes also from NestJS Common. Now in here, let's say const GQL CTX is equal to context get arg by index2. So now we have access to the GraphQL context, and then we can access the request object of type request coming from Express by saying GQL CTX .rec, yeah, .rec, and then const token is equal to this .extract token, This is a method that we have to create, and we pass in the request. Then for the case that we have now token, then we throw a new unauthorized exception from NestJS common, and we say not authorized. Otherwise, we can try to get the payload from the token by saying const payload in a try and catch block. And here we say await this JWT service, and here we can access verify async, and we can pass in the token. And now you need to provide some options here. So comma, let's open up an object, and in here we have a public key, and here we say process.env JWT public key, and this public key looks like this. One moment, where is it? It looks like this here, yeah. So it has a format like this. Yeah, this is very important. And you get this public key from your Clerk dashboard. Let me show it to you. So let me try to find the key that we need. So I think you need to go to API keys here under developers, and then you need to go to advanced. And then you need to go down to JWT public key, and then you need to choose this tab here, PEM public key. And here it is, yeah. You need to grab the whole thing and paste it in here. And you should be fine then. And now let's go back to our auth guard. And here also it's important to say algorithms and then array rs256. Yeah, you need to use this. And now down below you can say request, and you can attach the profile, which is equal to payload. And sorry for this, we also need to have a catch block with the arrow. And the thing is, our profile will now have our email, and it will have our email because where was it? Here in JWT templates, what we've done here is we've said that we want to include the email, yeah? And also the username is there, but the email is the important thing because it's unique, and we can use this to find our profile in our database and so on, yeah? Then for the case that we have an error, we say throw new error, unauthorized exception, not authorized. But if we pass all of this, we can return true, meaning the user is correctly authenticated. So let's make it private because we only need to use it here. It takes in the request and it returns a string or undefined. And here we say return request headers authorization, and then replace, we say replace, because the token will be in the format of bearer, empty space, and then the token. And we only want to have the token, so we get rid of this bearer and replace it with an empty string. Yeah, this is all what we are doing here. And let's close it. And we are done with our auth guard. Nice. Let's close it. Now let's go back to our profile resolver. And here we can make use of use guards from NestJS common. And we can import our GraphQL auth guard like this. And now we should get a couple of errors. Let me see it. Yeah. So let's go to our profile module. And here in our providers array, we need to put in our Prisma service because it's a dependency that we use in our profile service. And also JWT service. Yeah, we need to use the JWT service here in the providers array because in our profile resolver we are using the guard here, and this guard depends on the JWT service. Okay, nice. Now all errors are gone. Okay, now let's have a look at our schema. Here you see that we have a couple of object types now. And you see that we have our enums here because we registered them properly. And here we have a type for our channel because we use the object type decorator. We have member here. We have one mutation, which is our create profile mutation. And we have two queries here, yeah, get profile by ID. And we have our query that we have created previously. Okay. And what you also see here is all the IDs here are of type float. And this is because we have made use of number here. And this will be converted to type float in GraphQL. We could also use another type here, like this, for example, ID from NestJS GraphQL. And then we can use it here. And now let's see how our profile looks like. Wait, why is this not working? And here we can say, no, actually we have to say number here. And now let's see how this looks like in our schema here when looking at profile. And now you see it's of type ID here, yeah? But because I do not want to write it like this always, I get rid of it and leave it like this. So it's fine to work with float here. This totally works. And now I would say we jump to the front end and make sure that our Apollo client is working properly on our front end. And then we will set up GraphQL CodeGen, which allows us to automatically generate all the types for us. So we do not need to type anything manually on the front end. We can simply use all the types here on our front end. So we do not have to write any interfaces and so on. We do not have to write our own types. Nothing like this. Everything will be fully typed, our backend and front end. And this is super beautiful. You will see this in action now. So let's go. Okay, welcome back to our front end. So now we will install the Apollo client. More about it you can read in the official docs of Apollo client. But what we will be doing now is we will install Apollo client and GraphQL on our front end. So let's do that. Now let's create a file in source apollo client.ts. Now, first of all, let's create a function getCookie, which is equal to an arrow function. And here we pass in a name, which is the name of the cookie that we are trying to get. And it's of type string. And in here we say const value is equal to, and then we say document.cookie. And make sure to write it like this. Yeah, so a string, then a semicolon, empty space here. And in here, let's say const value is equal to document cookie like this. And in here, let's say const value is equal to a string. Then we have semicolon, empty space. And then we say, or maybe let's make it a template string like this. And we say semicolon, empty space, and then document.cookie. Then down below, let's say const parts. So we turn this string into an array, value.split, and we want to split it like this here, yeah. And then for the case that parts.length is equal to 2 length, and then we say return parts pop, and then question mark for the case that we have anything there, and then we say split. We want to split at semicolon and then shift like this. And this should get us the token from our browser. Okay. Okay, now let's create our first link for our Apollo client. Here we have to say auth link, and we make use of set context, which we have to import from Apollo client link context, yeah. And set context has an arrow function in here as argument, which is async and which gets access to one first argument that we do not need, and then also two headers here. And then in here we can say const token is equal to get cookie, and then we pass in the name __ session like this. And this will get us this thing here. Once we have the token, let's say return an object, let's say headers. Let's open up curly brackets. Let's spread in all the headers that we have, but let's modify the authorization. For the case that we have a token, we want to put in a token with the format of bearer, empty space, and then our token. Otherwise, we just put in an empty string like this. Let's close it properly. All right. Later, we also have to create a WebSocket link, but for now we will not do this because we don't need it. We do not need it yet. Yeah. So WebSocket link, let's make it a to-do. Next, we can create an upload link. This is what we need. So we can actually upload images to the server. Create upload link like this. We also have to import it. Create upload link from Apollo upload client. And actually, we have to install this. npm I Apollo upload client. And then let's say create upload link. Let's open up parentheses, curly brackets. Let's provide an URI. And here we say 3000. And then GraphQL. And let's say headers. This is important. Apollo require pre-flight. And let's set it to true like this. Okay. Upload link is done. And this is the auth link. Now we need an arrow link. Const arrow link. Here we make use of on arrow, which we also have to import. Yeah, from Apollo client link arrow. In here we have an arrow function again. And this arrow function has access to GraphQL, graph uppercase QL and then errors and network error like this. And all we do here is we say GraphQL errors for the case that we have some. What we want to do then is we want to log them to the console. So let me use the correct name here. So here let's say GraphQL errors.map. And then here we can get access to message of the error, locations and path like this. And then we can say console log and we can log it to the console. Yeah, this is all what we are doing here. And here, sorry for this must be in curly brackets like this. And this is properly typed now. Okay, perfect. Or maybe let's use the network error. So we say down below here, if network error, then we log it to the console as well. Here we have another to do, split link. This is what we need to use for WebSockets and HTTP. And now we can say const cache is equal to new in-memory cache, which comes from Apollo client cache. And then we say const client is equal to new Apollo client from Apollo client core. Let's open our parentheses, curly brackets, and let's pass in auth_link.concat upload_link.concat error link, and also the cache like this. And now let's say export default client like this. Okay, beautiful. And we actually don't need this import. Now let's head over to our main.tsx. And in here, let's wrap everything in here down below and above the Mantine provider with the Apollo provider, like so. And let's pass in the client as prop. Let's close it properly like this. Let's make sure that we import Apollo provider correctly. So here let's say import Apollo provider from Apollo client, and let's import client from this is not correct, import client from Apollo client, yeah, like this. Okay, so one more thing though, let's make sure that we have our user button here in our sidebar. So let's go to our sidebar. And let's make sure that we have the user button here down below, like this. Let's make sure that you import it from clerk. Yeah, so clerk/clerk React. And now we have our user button here. We can sign out and we can sign in again, which works perfectly. So we have some issue here with our Apollo client. And you know what? Since we are experiencing this error, let's do the following to properly log this error. Let's make sure that we use these two functions in our Apollo provider. So let's go back to our front end. And let's go to our Apollo client, and here above let's use these two functions, load def messages and load error messages. They are coming from Apollo client def. Yeah, and now let's see if we see further information here. And here I get this now. you are calling concat on a terminating link, which will have no effect. So can we do it differently with a link, or maybe, or we do it like this, arrow link concat, and then we pass in auth link concat upload link. Let's try this. Okay, this seems to be working now. The error is gone. So make sure to write it like this for now. Later, when implementing WebSockets, we will change this. So this is only for now, but later we will change it. So yeah, don't worry. Now I would say let's set up GraphQL CodeGen. So let's go to the official docs of GraphQL CodeGen. Let's go to docs. Let's go to installation, and let's make sure that you install everything here. So let's open up our terminal, and in here we say npm I. Oops. Let me clear it for you. npm I, and then GraphQL. And then also this line here, yeah, TypeScript, GraphQL CodeGen, and then also this here, paste it in, and also this here, yeah, the watcher. And why we use this watcher, you will also see in a bit. Let's install everything. And now let's head over to this. And now let's look how we can use it with React. So let's click on here. And here we need to make sure that we also install a few things. So I think we have installed GraphQL already here, yeah. So we might need to install the second line here. Let's grab it, paste it in. Now let's grab this here, this code for our CodeGen.ts. Now in our root directory we create a file, CodeGen.ts. We paste it in. The schema is at http localhost 3000 GraphQL, and then under source let's create a folder, GraphQL. In there let's create another folder, mutations and queries. And why not, let's create also a third folder for subscriptions. And now we need to make sure that this fits, that GraphQL CodeGen is able to find the queries, mutations, and subscriptions. So we are in source, then we have to go to GraphQL, and then we have to go in the subfolders here, which is either mutations, queries, or subscriptions. And in there we want to watch for any files which have .ts, yeah? So the file name doesn't matter, but it needs to have .ts, like this. Okay, beautiful. And now let's start to create our first mutation. And maybe, yeah, let's put it in here. And we name it create profile.ts. Let's import GQL from Apollo client. Then let's say export const create profile or uppercase. This is just a convention. You don't need to do it like this. And now let's use GQL template string like this. And in here let's say mutation create profile, and then input create profile DTO, yeah? It needs to be of type create profile DTO. And now in here, this name here is important because this refers to the name of our mutation in our backend, yeah? So this needs to be correct, while this name and this name does not matter, yeah? Okay, and here we say input and we pass in our input variable. Okay. And then let's close it properly. Here we want to return the ID, the image URL, name, and email. Yeah? As simple as that. And now let's run CodeGen npx GraphQL CodeGen. Let's say verbose, so we get a nice output in the console. And let's say watch. And this watch flag watches constantly for any changes in our folders here. So whenever we create a new mutation query or subscription, it runs and it creates types for us. Yeah, this is super cool. I really like it. And now we have this GQL folder here, and we have a GQL.ts file here. Actually, we need to look in this GraphQL.ts file. And you see, we have a couple of types here created for us. We have an enum type here. And this is the beauty of GraphQL CodeGen. It generates all the types for us, so we do not have to write our own types. Yeah, this is the beauty of GraphQL CodeGen here. And you also see that we have our mutation type here and so on. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, and now let's head over to our root layout and let's make sure that we create a profile in our database once the user signs in for the first time, and for the case that there is no profile in our database. Yeah, so let's make sure we have this functionality in place. So let's go to our root layout, which is basically our entry point of our front-end application. And in here, let's access our profile using our use profile. We have this already? We have just the general store. So we need to create another Zustand store. So let's name it profile store.ts. Oops, and we have to create it under stores. Let's import create from Zustand. Let's import persist from Zustand middleware. And let's import our first type here, profile, from GraphQL. Yeah? Generated for us by GraphQL CodeGen. So we do not need to write our own type. Now let's say interface profile store, and this interface has a profile property of type profile or null, and it has an action set profile which takes in a profile and it returns nothing. Okay, now let's create our store. Export const use profile store. Let's say create. Let's type it with our profile store. Let's use parentheses. Let's open up parentheses again. Let's use persist in here. So all the values are stored in our local storage. And now let's say set. And here we open up parentheses, curly brackets again, as we have done previously in general store. And now we say initially the profile should be null. And then we have our setter here, which gets the profile. And then it calls set, and we pass in our profile. Like this. Now let's also make sure that we give it a name, and we name it profile store, like this, yeah? Sorry, my bad here. So this is not correct. In set, we need to run an arrow function, and then we need to pass in profile like this, but this must be in parentheses as well, yeah? So make sure it's like this. And I still get an error. Why is this? Actually, sorry. We don't need to put in this type here, so only profile. And we are good. Yeah, so this should be fine. I'm not sure whether I have to type it here again. Let's get rid of it. Let's see. Yeah, it's properly typed. So I don't need to provide this type here. Okay. Now let's go back to our root layout. Let's use our profile store. Let's import it. In here we run an arrow function which gets access to the state, and we return state.profile. Now we can also access the session, and we can actually access it like this using curly brackets, and then use session provided by clerk React like this. Now let's make use of our create profile mutation by using the use mutation hook provided by Apollo client. And here we need to type it. So we say create profile mutation. And create profile mutation, this type has been created for us, yeah, by using GraphQL CodeGen. And then also we can say comma and then create profile mutation variables. So now it's properly typed and we know what arguments it expects. Okay. And we need to make sure that we import create profile from GraphQL mutations create profile. Now we can run all the logic in a use effect like this. And this use effect depends on a couple of things. It depends on the create profile function. Yeah, this is a function that we will be creating inside of use effect. And then also it depends on session user like this. Okay. Now in our use effect, let's create a function, const create profile fn, which is an async arrow function. And in here, let's have a try and catch block. In the try block, or maybe outside, for the case that we have no session user, we want to return. So we can't do anything. Otherwise, we can do the following in the try block. We can say await create profile variables. And now let me close it properly like this. We need to use input. And the reason why we need to use input here is because we named it input here, yeah? This is important. And then input, open up curly brackets again. And now we have auto-completion because we properly typed it here, yeah? This is very beautiful, I really like it. And we say session, question mark, user email addresses. And then at position 0, email address like this. Then also let's do name, session username, full name, and let's do image URL. Session user and then image URL like this. And now let's say if this is not populated, let's use session user full name maybe. Okay, this is the same. Maybe just let's use an empty string like this, yeah? Okay. And let's keep going for the catch block. For now, let's just log this error. Maybe let's say error creating profile in backend like this. Now, once this has been completed, yeah, we can do the following. Let's say on completed, this is a callback which gets access to the data which contains basically everything that we have specified here. And what we want to do is we want to say set profile, and we pass in data.createProfile like this. And currently we don't have this, so let's create this variable set profile by accessing our profile store again and then set profile here, yeah? And this should be fine. Okay, beautiful. And now, for the case that we have a user, or I should say profile.id, this means this has been done already, meaning we already have a user or a profile in our database. Then we simply want to return. Otherwise, we call the create profile function, yeah? Okay. And now, let's see what's happening here. So, let's go over here. Let's hit refresh. And we get a couple of errors here, huh? Okay, why is it? Create profile function is not defined. Why is it? Maybe I made a mistake here, create profile function. And here, actually, we don't need this create profile function here. Hey there, this is me from the future, and I'm here to fix an issue. So, for the case that we have been signed in our application, we have a populated profile in our profile store. Yeah, so far so good. But now, when signing out and signing in again with another email, what you see then is that in our profile store, we are still signed in with the old email. And this is really, really bad. Yeah. So based on this, we will have problems such as being not able to fetch the servers that we have created and so on. So this is really, really bad. But luckily, there is an easy fix for this, and I would say, let's fix this problem now. Okay, so we need to go to our root layout. And here I have already prepared something. So we have one use effect here, which is fine. But we need another one here, yeah? So let me uncomment it. And here we say, for the case that we are not signed in anymore, we want to set the profile in our Zustand store to null. Yeah? And we want to do it every time is signed in or set profile changes. Yeah? And what is signed in now? You see it here. We can access it by using the use auth hook from clerk React. Yeah? And that's all we have been doing here, yeah? And this here is really important to set the profile to null, because otherwise we will not reach this line here, yeah? Because we always will have a profile ID, so we return here and we will never reach this line here, yeah? Where we call this function, yeah? Which creates or returns the current user and stores it in the Zustand store, yeah? So this is very important that we have this line in place, yeah? Otherwise, we will always get a problem when signing out and signing in with another email address and so on, yeah? So this is really bad if we don't have this in place here. So make sure you have this use effect here. And with that in place, let's try it out. Let me sign out. And now let me sign in with another email again. And now you see, we see a couple of servers here. So it is working and it is correctly fetching these servers based on the current email address, yeah? And so this is fixed. Let me try to sign out again and sign in with another account here. And you will see that there are now servers. Yeah, we can create a server. Yeah, and yeah, everything works perfectly. Thank you so much. I hope you were able to fix this issue as well. And let's keep going.